Hello, welcome to your Active Recall Coach. I'm here to help you master programming concepts through 3 learning modes. Learn mode, where I teach you; quiz mode, where I test your knowledge; and teach back mode, where you explain concepts to me. Which mode would you like to start with?
Hello, so let's start with learn mode.
Great choice. To start in learn mode, please tell me which programming concept you'd like to learn about today.
Let's go with loops.
All right, let's dive into loops. Imagine you have a task you need to do multiple times, like counting to 10 or printing out every name on a list. Instead of writing the same instruction over and over, we use something called a loop. Loops are like a set of instructions that tell your computer to repeat an action. There are 2 main types of loops. 1. For loops, think of a for loop as saying, do this action a specific number of times. For example, if you want to print hello exactly 5 times, a for loop is perfect. It knows in advance how many times it needs to repeat. 2. While loops, a while loop is a bit different. It's like saying, keep doing this action as long as a certain condition is true. For instance, if you want to keep asking a user for input until they type the word quit, a while loop would be ideal. It keeps going until that condition, user types quit, is met. So in a nutshell, for loops are for when you know how many times you want to repeat, and while loops are for when you want to repeat as long as something is true. Does that make sense? Would you like me to explain anything further? Or perhaps give you a real-world example?
What about do while loop?
That's a great question. You're diving a little deeper into loop types. While many programming languages have for and while loops, some also have a do-while loop. A do-while loop is very similar to a while loop, but with one key difference. While loop checks the condition before executing the code inside the loop. If the condition is false from the start, the code inside the while loop might never run. Do-while loop executes the code inside the loop at least once, and then checks the condition. If the condition is true, it repeats. If it's false, it stops. So, the main takeaway for a do-while loop is, the code block is guaranteed to run at least one time. You might use a do-while loop when you absolutely need to perform an action once before you even check if you should continue. For example, if you're asking a user to enter a number, and you want to ensure they enter a positive number, you do the asking, and then while the number is not positive, you'd ask again. That distinction between while and do-while makes sense?
Yeah,
Fantastic. I'm glad that made sense. Now that we've covered loops, would you like to 1. Continue in learn mode and explore another concept? 2. Switch to quiz mode to test your understanding of loops? 3. Try teach back mode, where you can explain loops back to me? 4. Or would you like to learn about a different concept altogether?
let's go to quiz mode.
Excellent! Switching over to quiz mode. Get ready to test your knowledge. Here's your first question about loops. Explain the difference between a for loop and a while loop and give an example of when you'd use each. Take your time and let me know your answer.
Okay, so for the for loop, as we know that it tells us how many times we want to execute the block of code,
That's
and when we don't know the how many times we have to execute the block of code, we use the while loop. Is that correct?
You're absolutely on the right track. That's a really good explanation of the core difference. You got the main idea perfectly. For loop, yes, it's typically used when you know how many times you want to execute a block of code, or when you're iterating over a collection of items like a list where the number of items is known. Well, loop, and yes, you got it. A while loop is perfect for when you don't know exactly how many times you need to repeat. But instead, you want to keep repeating as long as a certain condition remains true. To make your answer even more complete, could you give a quick example of when you might use each? Just a simple scenario would be great.
So if we have to take out the prime numbers between 1 to n, we can use the while loop because we don't know the exact number of n, And for taking out the number of prime numbers between 1 to 5, we can use the for loop.
That's a very interesting thought process. Let's clarify the examples a little bit as you're close, but there's a small nuance. For the for loop example, for taking out the number of prime numbers between 1 to 5, we can use the for loop. Yes, that's a perfect example. If you know the range 1 to 5, a for loop is excellent for checking each number in that known sequence. For the while loop example, if we have to take out the prime numbers between 1 to n, we can use the while loop because we don't know the number of n. This is where it gets a little tricky. Even if n is a variable, the while loop example would be something like keep asking the user for numbers until they enter a negative number. Here, you don't know how many times you'll ask. You just know you stop when a condition negative number is met. You did a fantastic job explaining the core difference though. That's the most important part. Would you like another question in quiz mode? Would you like to switch modes or try a different concept?
You exactly catch that point. Good.
I'm glad I could clarify that for you. It's a common point of confusion, and you're doing great by thinking through these scenarios. How would you like to proceed? Would you like another question in quiz mode, switch to a different learning mode, or perhaps explore a new programming concept?
I guess that's all for today.
All right, sounds good. You made excellent progress today understanding loops and even tackling a quiz question. Thank you for learning with me. Remember, you can come back anytime you want to continue your programming journey. Have a wonderful day.